Hey everyone, how we doing? Happy Wednesday. Apologies, starting a bit later today. I was racing home from my cousins who cut my hair. I was growing my hair pretty long, but I needed a trim. So very, very happy about that. Feel a bit lighter on the head. And then I was racing home, trying to find something to eat on the way back. Had some fish and chips. Such a British thing to do, right? And things have just been remarkably hectic this week with work. I'm actually going to be going straight back to work after this. I know that there is a PlayStation State of Play in 50 minutes time as well. So this will probably be a shorter show, but a show nonetheless. And it was actually while taking my drive home, I was trying to think about what do I want to do a show about. I've mentioned before I do have this long list of ideas and I look at what sticks out to me, but I just decided to reflect and think about what to talk about today. And I was listening to the radio discussions on world politics, and I was just like, this is something I've spoken about many times before, but I am just in complete and utter despair at the state of leadership here in the UK, but also when I look at what's happening in the US at the moment. And so I thought, let's just have a conversation about leadership. So today is not going to be a deep dive into like specific political parties or things like that. It's more of a vibe check with what we think the biggest challenges are in the world, because I find that when you have discussions about them and then you look at root causes, most people are on the same page. The disagreements tend to come down to the execution of those. And I think that because of a long-lasting failure of leadership for reasons that I'll get to a bit later, I think it means that people just want radical change no matter what. And I just could see this becoming a session of me venting. Many of you will know that I used to do a lot of videos on politics. I don't do as much of it these days, mainly because I'm just exhausted. And I've always regarded it as being a bit of a baton, or baton as you say in the States, where you can't be on all of the time. And I feel that in my earlier years I was very much involved in activism. I was trying to empower people in that way. I still do a bit of it today, but whereas now I sort of work in the space with technologies, and obviously I do stuff like this, but I often look at younger people that are, rallying cries for particular things, and I'm just like, I wish I had that energy now. And maybe it'll come back one day. I definitely don't feel the energy right now, just because I'm aching from working out on Monday, 2 days later, and then I'm like, oh, I'm getting old. And next Monday, the 17th, will be my 38th birthday. So I'm leveling up. Hopefully, I'm not there yet, but hopefully I'll get there. But before we get on with all that, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone in the live chat. And if you're watching on replay as well, hello to all of you. I'm sure there'll be lots of discussions afterwards. Say hello if you're in the live chat. There's many of you. Many of you are pretty quiet. But we've got Callie, Timecat, good to see you here. We've got Mojo, we've got Clem Fandango. And by the way, people, do hit the like button. Plenty of you here. We've got Chris, Diano, or Dino, should I say? So I just make up pronunciations now. Hello to you. Dominic, good to see you here. Trixie, hello. James, good to see you. Gustavo says crisis of leadership for Sony. There has actually been talks about that recently. So to be honest, this comes into it because I think leadership, obviously we will be talking about politics, but when we think of corporations, there is a lot of power consolidation and complacency, whereas I find that when it comes to companies, the power of startups is you're small, you're nimble, you're agile. You can, obviously it's a lot easier to navigate. That gives you advantages, whereas if you're a long-lasting company, there's a lot of legacy issues and it can be harder to change things. But at scale, you still have a lot of power, and it means that you can afford to do things that maybe are less efficient than others. Agramonia, good to see you here. Vargelsoft, good to see you. Chaos says, Myles is getting ripped. I'm really not. I mean, I'd like to get ripped, but it's going to be a while. And no, I wasn't at the gym. I was playing a Quest game called Fitness Fables, which is great. Thwackit, great name, especially with that archery picture. Good to see you. Galanio, good to see you here. Hello. So yeah, Trixie says at least you aren't in the USA. I mean, I mean, yeah. I mean, being a white guy in the US, I would definitely probably be afforded a lot more. I don't know. No. I know people that were from the UK that got deported because they were still waiting for processes. Like they've been pretty harsh on that sort of stuff. But the problem is, you know, you don't have to be in America to be impacted by America. What's it? If America sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. That kind of thing. It's why I've for the longest time, I've always had an interest in American politics, more so than our own. So yeah, I've got some questions to throw out there. But before we do that, I just want to get to a bit of housekeeping. Always very, very important. And I'm so happy to say, first of all, I've started doing Let's Plays again. I keep trying to get into it. I've done 2 the last 2 days. Yesterday, I did the Street 10 VR, which is like one of the worst things ever. So bad that it was actually already delisted off the PlayStation Store. And I have to say, mad props to, who was it? Who was it that did the... I joke saying someone do the timestamps. And... I'm wondering about this. It was began with K. Kisnell did the timestamps for it. Big props. Pop Psyche said that was hilarious. Probably the most sarcastic I've seen, Miles. When you escaped the map, I would have just jumped off the edge. That's hilarious. So yeah, that was really good fun. So yeah, I did that. What else we got here? We got the store. Check out the store if you haven't already. We got that. Also, you can support by becoming a member. Become a member. You unlock a badge next to your name. Also emojis, all that sort of stuff. And join the Discord Empathy Arcade, where lots of wonderful people hang out, and perhaps the conversations we have today will continue there as well. And if you like the music you hear at the start, just head on over to Myles Dyer Live on Spotify. So, yeah, big props for that. I mean, I was kind of joking, and I've asked them to contact me on Discord so I can send them a shirt because that was great. We did platinum it. Well, I didn't want to say this on the live stream, so I platinumed it, but it was on my American account, because for some reason I couldn't play it on my UK account. But then I realised what I was doing. I kept signing into my US account on like a guest single use, which means obviously once you log out, it's logged out of it. And it meant that games that you unlock on one, you can't do on the other. So I kid you not, people, last night I played it again. I planned it a second time. But I did it in 8 minutes. So it was a lot quicker that time. So I've actually played... the Street 10 VR twice. Unbelievable. Miles, it's cold. What do you have? A nice drink? I just had some Coca-Cola earlier, and it goes nicely with it. And I just needed some caffeine to boost me up because it's going to be a long night for me tonight. So yeah, Chaos says I'm in Canada and it's rough here. Yeah. Oh man, it's getting wild. It's getting wild. Miles, are you streaming the State of Play? I am not, just because I have a lot of work on. I mean, I'd love to go straight into it afterwards, but I know that Brian, without parole, is going to be there. So I wish you could do raids on YouTube Live like you can do on TikTok. That would have been really cool. Mason says, off topic, but have you tried hand tracking on PSVR 2? I have not. I was going to do it last night, but I was so tired. I mean, I say that, and then obviously I played the Street 10 VR again. But I do want to try it out. And for those that don't know, hand tracking is where in VR it uses the cameras to map your hands, and it means you don't need controllers and you can just use your hands. Quest does it on the Quest 3, which is very, very good. You get hands-free hand tracking. But PlayStation never had it, but they have just added it, and it looks super cool. And I definitely want to try it out. Yeah, so yeah, go check out Brian. I think Jammy's going to be playing it as well. So yeah, check all of that. All right, people. So for today's topic, and I'm only moving on quickly because we've got 40 minutes together. 40 minutes together, and we know how quickly the time goes here, right? So I feel like I need some dramatic background music for this, but no, we're going to keep it chill. There we go. Chill and thoughtful. So, even 10 years ago, my despair for the political class has been vibrant and long-lasting. But having despair at government leadership is as old as time, as old as governments themselves. There's always the famous Churchill thing, which is it like democracy's the worst form of governance except for all the others? And those of you that have been following me for a long time will know that my political philosophy is I advocate for a resource-based economy, which is like post-capitalism. And for the longest time, I will always get people pushing back going, oh, we've tried it before, or like, you know, capitalism is the best, it's the best system we've ever had. All the others have failed. And it's like, but before capitalism existed, there was a system that was the best until capitalism came along. And, you know, post the industrial revolution allowed for massive wealth creation and expansionism in lots of ways. Capitalism has been good in many, many ways, but you always need governance to curtail the bad externalities, whether it's protecting the environment, protecting people, you know, think of workers' rights. There's so many things that we enjoy in our lives that we take for granted that weren't given to us, they were fought for. And I can say that as a white guy. You know, there are liberties that many people have only had in their lives more recently. And so it's very easy to become complacent or feel that things were always this way. And then I think that kind of nostalgia of wanting to go back to how things were, we always think it used to be better. But I do think that something else is happening there, which is things are getting worse in a lot of ways. And so people want radical change and they're like, well, we need to go back. If things have got worse, it means they were better before, so therefore the system must have been better. But the thing is, there are a lot more things in play. I digress, though. My point was that a resource-based economy, for those that don't know, is the notion that through AI, through computers, you can map the supply and demand of goods and services needed by a civilization. Money is a great middle ground because obviously people have credits. They have to work out where they want their funds to go, where they want to invest their time, and, you know, working, you know, having their labor earn them cash and then spend it on goods and services to stimulate the economy. But there's a lot of fundamental flaws with capitalism, and I do genuinely feel like we will look back one day and think, like, what were we doing? And I do believe we're in late stage capitalism. I think we are in a cancerous stage of it. But I'm not an absolutist. I'm not here to say capitalism is like completely terrible and it's never done a good thing. It's done many good things, but it's done many terrible things as well. And so I think that the reason I mention that today is because when we talk about leadership, I think a big question we're going to be asking ourselves is it actually to do with the individuals or is it to do with the systems? It could be a bit of a chicken or egg thing. Systems create certain leaders, and then those leaders perpetuate new systems, which often serve them and, you know, preservation of whatever power structures they've got in place. And so I only mention that as a bit of backstory because when I think of like the 2008 banking crisis, when I think about Occupy Wall Street, even when I think about the Iraq War, I can think of lots of moments in life where there's been a failure in leadership and it's nothing new. However, we are at a point I'm actually going to say in history, in human civilization, where the stakes have never been higher when it comes to income and wealth inequality, when it comes to international stability with conflict, when it comes to the climate crisis, which is real. It is happening, and I will debate anyone here on that any day of the week. Not that it should be debated, but it is a real thing. And as someone who studied psychology, I was always interested in something called the just world hypothesis. And I will touch upon it now because I think that this also touches upon a lot of the issues we see with leaderships and why we support failing politicians. The just world hypothesis, or the false, what's the other version called? It's called the just world hypothesis, or there's another word for it. I think it's just called the just world fallacy as well. But it's the idea that whenever something happens that's bad, it must have been deserved. So when you hear about like someone was shot, your mind is more likely to go, well, what were they doing? Why did they get shot? Were they doing something wrong? You're more likely to think that as a first point of contact than, oh my God, that was a horrific thing which happened to someone and it was either a tragic accident or they didn't deserve it. And I would just say, keep that in mind whenever you look at news stories and the way that they're disseminated, the way that they're framed, and the way that people talk about it. And something that I see very, very prevalent in today's mainstream discourse, and I do think it comes from, if we're going to talk about sides, one side more than the other, there is a cohort of, I'm going to say the population, but it's multiple populations, where people don't want life to get better for everyone. They just want the lives of other people that they see as opponents being worse than they are. So it's this idea of, you know, I don't know, you always hear like own the libs or stuff like that, or like, oh, look at them crying, or like, I'm glad shit is happening to them. I have never felt that about political opponents. I've never thought that about other people, even those that wish ill on me. I want life to be better for everyone, and for that to happen, you need strong and bold leadership, which gets us to what we're talking about today. And so I could talk for like 2 hours on my background and philosophies and that. And, you know, when Trump first ran for president, I did a video of why I thought he was going to beat Hillary Clinton. And even afterwards, when I said I can't stand Donald Trump for X, Y, and Z. By the way, I couldn't stand Hillary Clinton. I think this is another problem with leadership, is we have fucking horrible choices. And we have power structures that will not allow new insurgent leadership to rise. They would rather keep the status quo. And what it means is there is an ever-growing dissatisfaction. And then people eventually go, well, fuck it. We're gonna go for this option that's going to mess it all up. But the reason I bring that up was throughout the times that I've talked about politics, even people that ideologically disagree with me, I generally get on quite well with, because I never am here to misrepresent people. I always believe in steel manning people's arguments. And for those that don't know what that means, you know what a straw man is? You basically set someone's argument up in a way that they haven't represented it, but just so it's something easy to fight back on. You often actually see this in politics where people say, oh, so-and-so is for open borders. And they're not for open borders. They might have actually a more relaxed immigration policy, and that's actually a fair thing to have a discussion point on, but it's much easier to say they're for open borders and to attack them like that. On the flip side, you could criticize someone for having fascistic tendencies, but you might jump to the Nazi word when actually they're not a Nazi. And I'm not here for doing false equivalencies and things like that, but I do think intellectual honesty is very important. Unfortunately, we operate in a world now where intellectual honesty isn't rewarded, but we need leaders who aren't only intellectually honest, they need to be good communicators, and they need to be people that are willing to fight for what people, everyday people, deserve. And so I feel like this is going to be the final bit I say before I sort of open it up. The reason I'm incredibly frustrated is Trump got elected again in the US. And look, I'm just going to be completely honest. Trump is a fucking disaster. But to be honest, Kamala Harris was a fucking terrible candidate. I was someone who, and you might be able to see him at the back here, blurred out a bit. Bernie Sanders up there. I was a big supporter of Bernie Sanders. Not a perfect candidate, has some flaws, like anyone, but he was a real fighter. And interestingly enough, when I looked at the latest American election, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who don't agree with her on everything, but she's a breath of fresh air, has some youth going into the political system that I think is definitely needed in America. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on her Instagram, I think it was, asked for people to reach out if they vote for her, but they also voted for Trump. And she got a load of responses. And what I love about that, and I think this gets to the crux of what we're talking about today, is there were people that were voting for AOC that also voted for Trump. And it turned out there were. And you know what? There were a lot of people that said, well, with AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's from the Bronx, by the way, New York. Don't tell me which district she's from. She... There were people like, I don't agree with you on these policies, but you're a fighter. You're a fighter. You say what you mean, and you mean what you say. And I respect that, even though I don't necessarily agree with your policies. Like, people want fighters. And the thing I am incredibly frustrated about at the moment, it's happening in the UK. We have a Labour government that needs to do bold, strong action, and they just seem weak. And you could argue it's about optics and the media and stuff like that. But I find that traditional politicians, I'm only speaking to America and the UK now, and I'd love people from other countries to mention it. I find that politicians seem to value being cordial and, you know, sticking to etiquette and processes more important than using power when you've got it. Look what Trump's doing now. He and Elon Musk are just ravaging the American government. There's like corporate capture taking place there right now. And it's because, and at the beginning, and by the way, Jon Stewart did a great thing on The Daily Show a couple of weeks ago. He was going through all this stuff that Trump was doing, and people going, oh, he's a fascist, it's anti-democratic. You look at a lot of the stuff that Trump was doing. No, he was doing it through the democratic means. He was democratically elected, and the things he's doing were allowed. He's allowed to do it, and if not, the courts will stand up to it. Obviously, the Republicans own the House and the Senate, so they have more leeway. What it actually is, that other politicians, when they've had that power, they've not used the power like Trump did. They've been toothless. I don't know if people, and this is getting really specific, when Joe Biden was in office, he had the Build Back Better, or the, what was it called, the IRA, which is an unfortunate term, the Inflation Reduction Act. And there was like stipulations in there, I think, for green energy, investment in jobs, you know, transitioning to a green economy, which is important. I can't remember what parts of the deal were there. I think Medicare for All might have been a part of it. But there was something called, what was the process called? Was it the parliamentary? Can someone help me out here? Was it the parliamentary or something? It was this process of, there is someone in the administration that's got to look at it and say if it's economically feasible. And it went through the parliamentarian. I think it's the parliamentarian. That was what it was called. I might have mispronounced it. So it goes through this process. And they go, oh, no, sorry, we can't do it. It's not been accepted. It's complete horseshit. Biden could have done it anyway. As he was going out of office, he could have done executive orders for, like, you know, releasing non-violent drug offenders, offenders like, you know, people that have done drugs, cleaning their records. Could have forgive student loan debt. All these things. Again, I'm not interested in debating the policies right now. But what I'm saying is he could have done shit. And what did he do? He, like, gave pardons to all his family and stuff. And I just find it completely depressing. So that was my ramble to begin with. I'm totally up for it. If people have questions or things they want to say, I could definitely keep going. But I think my question for today is, how do you feel about leadership in the world at the moment? Do you feel that they're meeting the moments of what the most pressing issues are? Again, it's economic, income and wealth inequality. It is peace, dealing with the world's order and conflict. And then it's also climate change, our environment, the physics in which the world that we live in, we are in serious fucking trouble. And when I've seen interviews with members of the Democrats, Sam Cedar from the Majority Report actually yesterday did a really great piece. There was a Democrat who, I think he was he voted above AOC for like a senior position? But he was like on the news at an angle like this with a terrible microphone. Fucking terrible. And it's like, these people need to get out. They might be good at their jobs and stuff like that, but I'm sorry, like, we can't deal with mediocrity anymore. We need fighters. We need people that are actually going to communicate well. They're actually going to stir things up a bit. And they're going to say, fuck process, follow the process, but like push it to its limits. Because that is what you've got to put in a election campaign, is if I have the power that Trump has got right now, for example, this is what I'm going to do with it. And there are so many easy wins. There are so many policies that are overly popular with the American people, but a lot of them are curtailed by donors, money and politics, all this bullshit. And the longer we leave it, the harder it gets, whether it's leaving climate change, kicking the can down the road, whether it's curtailing oligarchs. What Elon Musk is doing is a fucking joke. And the way that the music has stopped. Need that. Need to be a bit chilled, right? We're fucked. That's how I feel. But then the question is, then what do we do about it? And someone joked saying, Myles, for Prime Minister, I would never run for politics. And this is the problem. I think it was Mark Twain famously said, the only people that should be running the country are those that are dragged kicking and screaming. And we've seen examples of it. We've seen examples of people that ran because they just wanted to put ideas on the table. It happened with Jeremy Corbyn in the UK, who I had issues with, and it happened with Bernie Sanders. But these are people that believe in movements, and political power structures are terrified of movements because they're harder to control. It's much easier to control an individual, and Trump is a useful idiot to Elon Musk. I'm just having a look at what people are saying. They pulled out funding that helps everyone, so now can't monitor outbreaks. Yeah. Well, so let me talk about that, right? So, the US aid, or USAID, that had its funding pulled. I've seen a lot of people that go, this is great. It's the whole classic argument of like, we need to help people at home before we help people abroad. But soft power is very important in the world. And, you know, having the America flag on like health packages and like, you know, anything you do puts you in good stead with the rest of the world. Whereas if the rest of the world goes downhill, it has a negative impact. Climate change. People that are worried about immigration and don't want massive amounts of people coming to their country, but don't give a shit about climate change, I've got some news for you. You think that the risk of immigration is terrible now? It's going to get way worse when areas of the world increasingly become uninhabitable, and it becomes a race to the bottom. And I think there are two things in play here. It's a race to the bottom, get people to fight amongst themselves, the rich and the powerful accumulate more power, less accountability. And with the rise of AI and robotics, which is another topic I want to talk about another time, we are in serious fucking trouble. AI and robots aren't intrinsically dangerous. Those that are controlled by people that want to maintain power, and Stephen Hawking wrote about this before he passed away, that's when we run into serious issues. And by the way, Flo, I like all the 100% you're giving. There is no stopping what's coming. Trump is a wrecking ball. In 6 months, the US will be a very different place than the world. Whether you like him or not, world leaders will bow to Trump. Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example of what's happened in the UK. We had Brexit. So we pushed ourselves away from the EU, which is our largest trading partner. And it's like, but we'll get other trading deals elsewhere. And so then we start looking out to America, and Trump comes into office, and Trump wants a good deal, and he will be able to smell blood in the water. And so we're now kind of like out in the ocean, you know, wanting to do deals with the EU, but we're going to be rule takers, not rule makers anymore. And it's just, oh man, it's so fucking depressing. Like, when it comes to leadership, I'm always like, where are the adults in the room? That's what I feel again and again. And by the way, when I criticise Trump, I want to be absolutely clear. This is not an overarching criticism of people that voted for Trump. I think there's a lot of people that vote for Trump who were had good intentions. The Democrats put up an absolute piss poor candidate. Biden, who was going to be a transferable, or was he a transitional person, went against it. I mean, you just got to look at what they do, whether it's like Mitch McConnell and the Republicans, or Dianne Feinstein, who was like a senior Californian Democrat who had like Alzheimer's. She was moved around in a wheelchair while she was whispered into her ear what to say in votes by her advisors. Man, power structures are cruel and fucking evil, man. Oh yeah, we got trade wars as well. 100%. 100%. Hey, Amnesia Pete came to say 20 minutes for State of Play. Bye. Yeah, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Feel free to ask. So anyway, my question is, what do you look in leadership? For me, empathy and compassion is an important component, but compassion doesn't mean weakness. It means strength. It's like, I am going to fight to make sure everyone in society is taken care of. These are the priorities. These are the things we're going to do. And we're going to make tough decisions. And you know what? The rich and the powerful, they are going to have to, do their fair share. We can't have a society because, you can make lots of money. You can let society collapse. You've got some places in the world where people have like these compounds. Have you heard about the security guard dilemma? Is it the security guard? Let me find this out. I got to tell you about this. I'm just asking ChatGPT to explain it. Okay, here we go. Right, so this is great. I love this. But this is also really depressing. So you ready for this? And by the way, this is a dilemma that billionaires are trying to solve at the moment because they know if they don't solve it, they're fucked. So there's a concept often referred to as the security guard dilemma that involves the idea of wealthy people building bunkers or safe havens to protect themselves during societal collapse. It explores the paradox of whether they can truly trust the people, security guards, staff, etc., who protect them in such scenarios. Here's a simple explanation, right? Ready? Imagine a billionaire builds a high-tech bunker to survive an apocalypse. To keep themselves safe, they hire security guards, but in a world where money has lost its value, the guards might realise that they hold all the power. After all, the guards control the billionaire's safety, food, and resources. Why would they remain loyal when they could take over the bunker for themselves? This dilemma questions how much loyalty can be bought when societal structures like money and status collapse. It highlights the fragility of trust when everything hinges on power dynamics rather than shared humanity or values. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's a really cool dilemma. So, I mean, I can tell you who I would want to run for president in America next time. Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart would be my choice. For those that don't know, Jon Stewart has done a lot of great advocacy. He advocated for the 9/11 first responders, didn't he, who were needing healthcare because they were breathing in fumes and becoming sick. And Jon Stewart absolutely, I think it was Republican Congress were trying to block it, and Jon Stewart just took him to shame. I'm having a read of the comments at the moment. Lots of shocked faces with the security guard dilemma. Chaos says we're all too busy playing VR to get involved with politics. I'll tell you what, though, it is a great escapism thing. But I also think there is going to become a point where we are all going to be involved in it. Like, we are on the cusp of... I am going to say societal collapse. I think it's never been more real. Someone disliked the live stream, so I just want to say, if you dislike the live stream, do let me know. If it's because you disagree with me on something, do say. Like, I'm always open to have conversations about what people disagree with. Some people just don't like politics, which I totally understand. In which case, dislike away. Jon Stewart, he does the Daily Show early on a Monday now. You need a celebrity, because it's all about the team of people. Okay, do you want me to make a really bold prediction of what I think is a possibility? And it's so out there, I think it's actually worth... I don't normally bet, but I'm tempted to put money on it, because I reckon the odds would be so rare that if it did happen, I could probably retire for as long as money continues to mean anything in today's society. So, my theory is this. Donald Trump is going to try and change the Constitution so he can run for a third term, which is currently unconstitutional. We can only run 2 terms in America. The last time they didn't have term limits, I think it was a socialist. Didn't he win 3 or 4 times in a row? And they were like, we've got to change this. But yeah. My theory is if Trump... It's basically going to be ironic. I think Trump is going to try and allow himself to run a third term. And I think if he does it, Barack Obama then runs a third term and beats Donald Trump. And by the way, I have a lot of issues with Barack Obama. I'm not here to be like, oh, the savior, Barack Obama. But Barack Obama also would absolutely own in an election. And so, yeah, I think that's the kind of like, be careful what you wish for, Donald. I could see that happening. So I should probably see what I could put money on. So the bet would be that the 2028 election is going to be Donald Trump versus Barack Obama. Donald Trump changes the Constitution to be able to run a third term, and then Barack Obama's like, all right, game on. So, yeah. We'll have to wait and see. Over there says, off topic, but are you watching State of Play? I will be watching it, not on this live stream. We'll be wrapping this up in like 5-10 minutes. Yeah, that is the stipulation, is that it only qualifies if they didn't do successive presidential terms. But then my point still stands. It wouldn't be successive for... Or do you mean that once you've done 2 in a row, you can't do it again? So the fact he did 1 and then got voted out and came back, he can then do 2 successive terms. Yeah. Yeah. That's that. Okay. That's fair enough. Yeah, that's probably what they would do. Theodore Roosevelt, thank you. Theodore Roosevelt was the one I was trying to think about. But yeah. Right. So, I'm going to summarise this. I'm going to summarise what I'm thinking about here. So, Donald Trump's going to be very old next time. Do you know what? Donald Trump becoming senile like Biden terrifies me. I think that's like way worse. Can everyone just type in the chat right now, what qualities do you look for in a leader? Just put like 1 or 2 words. I want to see what all the qualities are that you look for in a leader. We've got common sense. We've got empathy. So common sense is a term I personally don't like, but it's only because I've seen it used in ways of like, well, common sense for one person isn't for another. But I also understand what it means. But it's like, you know, you want people with practical skills, people who are like reliable. Oh yeah, it was wrong Roosevelt. It was Franklin D. Roosevelt. There we go. We got honesty. Yeah, a lot of people saying honesty. The thing is, right, this is where I have a lot of compassion for leaderships. Like, you can have someone that is like a chancellor or like, you know, runs the economy. I mean, but then again, we've had people that don't do what I'm about to say, just don't give a shit, and they seem to do just fine. But they know that every word they say, the way they say it, how they say it, could literally shift the markets. And so that's why they write a script and they become very, very uptight and, you know, not talking candidly. I wish there was more of that. Talking candidly. Wide pragmatic vision. This is good. I want to end on some positivity here. Honor, courage, commitment. I really liked... I didn't know much about her politics or how it went, but what was her name? The Prime Minister of New Zealand. She had metrics, because we always talk about like GDP, but they had like a happiness index, you know, measuring the success of the world, but of your country based on happiness. You look for Christ-like values in a leader, so like being able to turn water to wine. I'm totally with you on that. I think it's very, very important. Floor says, I believe in God, so living by that in a way. We've got direct, we've got humble, we've got strong, we've got intelligence. I mean, Elon Musk in some ways is intelligent. I mean, I think emotional intelligence is super, super important. So this goes back to the have to be dragged, kicking and screaming. Someone who doesn't crave power. We've seen examples of this who people say they don't crave power and they get there. And then the question is always, like, look at the media. Actually, we haven't talked about this. The failure of legacy media or media as a whole. Like, the idea that new media is a good thing. New media is the new corporate media. It's nothing to do with where the platform is. It's how it's funded. But the media is just a fucking failure, man. Absolutely spineless. It's all about, like, access, not rocking the cart. I find it so depressing. Mike says, I'm shocked Myles never had you down as a lefty. Is that honestly true? Is that honestly, oh, you just been sarcastic? Some people think it's obvious. I mean, I think I am legitimately centre left, but I'm not like left in like traditional standards. Like, as I was touching upon at the beginning, I am definitely a post-capitalist believer, which actually, if I deep dive, and maybe I'll do it on a future episode, I've talked about it before. If I talked about my philosophy of how I think society could run with technology, a lot of people would probably regard me as a libertarian. It's like no government. But I'm not one of these people that's like, we need to do this tomorrow. My point is, this is an inevitability. So how do we transition to that new system? And to be honest, you can be libertarian left. It's the whole axis, isn't it? Left and right, authoritarian, libertarian. Lots of great words here. This is really good. Jacinda Ardern. The army values: leadership, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honour, integrity, personal courage. I do like the service part. Selfless, I have an issue with. I understand what it means, and I do think it's admirable. I'll never forget, like 15 years ago, doing a video calling like being selfish. No, being selfless. It's being selfish. It's the idea that like you do something to help others, you feel good about it. I mean, that's what society is. You should feel good for doing stuff. I was only kidding with the water into wine. Turning hard hearts into soft. I like that a lot. This is all good. This is all really, really good. I like this, people. You're all great. You're all great. When you go to the fundamentals, this is what people all want. So, look, I'm just going to end with this piece because this is something I could have mentioned at the beginning. This is why we're in a lot of issues. And I think that this is a problem with leadership. I think it's a problem with the media and the way things are framed. It's like political euphemisms. And so what I mean by that is the way that things are said to misguide people. DEI is the buzzword at the moment, which stands for diversity, equality, and inclusion, isn't it? If you actually said the full words and not DEI, it suddenly sounds a lot less scary. And I think that it can allow for more honest conversations about it. But the thing I was going to talk about was, I'll go with the language piece and then I'm going to go with the policy piece separately. Okay, so the language piece is, I get sick to death when I hear politicians talking about unemployment rates. It's the lowest unemployment we've ever had. Or GDP is this. Or GDP, what is that tied to? Is that tied to like how well everyone is doing in society? Or is it like, you know, slope towards the haves and not the have-nots? And then for like, unemployment is at an all-time low. But yeah, but let's talk about the people that are employed. There are people that are employed in the UK, I'm pretty sure it's the same in the US as well, who go to food banks. We have nurses, people that work in the health service, work long hours, saving lives. They have to go to food banks to get by in life. That is not a sign of a successful society. It's a sign of a sick society. So don't give me this bullshit of like unemployment. Like, it's good that people have employment. Employment is important for purpose, but you need to go with new metrics. And actually, as has been said here, homeless people do have jobs as well. Absolutely right. So political euphemisms, you got to look out for them. And that is one of the biggest ones I see again and again, and it does my fucking head in. And then on the policy side, I was going to talk about taxes. And I think that this comes to the crux of a lot of like left-right divides. So there is a drive on the right to like, we just want to reduce taxes, we want to have more money in your pockets, and that sounds great, because when you're living in a society where you're paying all these taxes and you don't know where the money's going to, you see it spent on wars abroad, you see your crumbling infrastructure, you don't see the roads being improved, all this sort of stuff, it becomes very, very difficult to deal with. And so it is completely understandable that they're saying, look, government can't spend your money well, so you should pay less in taxes. And I totally understand it. I come from the school of thought where I feel that way, actually, and I understand that frustration. But I know that if society was run well with good, funded, reliable public services, I would be happy to pay more in taxes, knowing I wasn't going to have to worry about, you know, getting out my credit card when I go to the doctor, knowing that public transport is cheap, reliable, clean, knowing that crime is low, that when, you know, there's a fire, it gets dealt with quicker, that we have a green renewable energy system being put in place to help us transition to this new world that we're moving into. All of these things. And there are a lot of examples across Europe where they have good social safety nets, good social programs, higher taxation. But it's very easy if you're in a country where taxes don't seem to be spent well, that you look there and go, God, they spend even more on taxes. But yeah, but if you didn't have to worry about healthcare, if you didn't have to worry about all these things, you'd be fine paying more in taxes because you're actually saving money. Yeah, you're spending more in taxes, but then you're not spending money on those things that you'd be if it wasn't for taxes, if that kind of makes sense. And so it's also about the Overton window when we talk about policy. So political euphemisms, think about what people say. This is the trick that people do when it comes for gaining power and leadership. And the final thing I want to say is we need young people in politics. And I say that as a hypocrite because I would never be able to go into politics. I find it incredibly depressing. So yeah, today's episode was a bit of a rant. I was listening to the radio. I just also wanted to put it out there that if at the moment you're feeling despair about the world at the moment, you're not alone. I feel it too. Stuff needs to change. And I'm sure on future episodes we'll talk a lot more about it. But I am someone who believes in, watch your headspace. Make sure that you're thinking about stuff that you can control or needs to be thought about. Usually it's stuff that's happened. Don't worry too much on stuff that hasn't happened yet, although it's easier said than done if you're dealing with a leader that is doing horrible things that are going to affect certain communities or aspects of your life. But that's kind of the thing I would say is take care of yourself, because when it comes to self-compassion, remember what we say. It's about being kind to yourself, but it's also about becoming useful. And you can't be useful if you're pouring from an empty cup, and you can't be useful if you're spending all of your cognitive energy on despair. And to be honest, we don't have the luxury of despair. We have to fight. And I mean that in a productive, policy-driven, activisty way, non-violence, strong policy, and helping educate people to know that we're all in the struggle together. Solidarity is an ultimate healer, and solidarity is a weapon that can't be stomped out because there's more of us than there are of them. So with that rant over, PlayStation State of Play is on, so I'm going to go watch that now while getting back on with work. But yeah, I just want to thank you all for tuning in. I'm not going to do Vitamin G, although you can say what you're grateful for during the end credits. But I'm grateful for all of you for listening to me rant. I definitely need a drink after all that talking. And who knows, maybe I'll do some more political videos in future, because it's been a while and I think about it a lot. It's actually what I spend most of my time on YouTube doing, is watching political podcasts. Anyway, much love to you all. Next time you see me, I will be an older man. So I will see you as I commence my next lap around the sun. Love, respect, empathy, and adios. Till next time. Bye-bye, everyone. And if you have any thoughts about this, let us know in the comments below. Hit the like button, and I'll see you next time.
On the road, I was chasing sunsets all alone. The darkness faded, painting goodbye big sky. Far away but dreaming of your ocean eyes.
Thanks, everyone. I'm just going to end with a quote from the late Michael Brooks, who was a really, really good guy. I spoke to him a couple of times, and he was actually going to come on my Quest for Empathy podcast. He died young, too young. But he had a great quote, which was, "Be kind to people, be ruthless to systems." And actually, it was the other way around. I've seen it represented in different ways. People have put it in both ways. I wonder which way he said it. Maybe he did it the other way. It's be ruthless to systems, be kind with people. So, yeah, I like this a lot. Have a good one, everyone. Take good care of yourselves. Enjoy State of Play if you're watching it now. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.